Namaste, namaskaram, vanakkam, namo namaha, jai Ganesh. What is your concept of God? Small G-O-D. This was a question that was posed on social media. And it's a loaded question, meaning there's a lot to unpack here. Unless one wants to simply make the word God very superficial with a blanket, God bless you, for example, or perhaps God damn it. Let's look at this word God, small G-O-D, and that traces back to a Proto-Germanic, Old English term, a noun, and a male spirit being, as opposed to goddess. Is this a fact, or a fiction, or perhaps a relative perception, or a delusion? Here's where the word concept comes into play. And your. What is your concept, which is an abstraction, an idea, a notion, of a male spirit being? Well, that's up to each one to figure out within their self. And it would have to be a relative perception, for it's not a concrete fact that there is any male spirit being. Now, when it came to capital G-O-D, God, we trace this back to about 1,500 years ago, or maybe as recently as 1,000 years ago. So there's an interesting conversation starter. Prior to, very liberally, 1,500 years ago, God didn't exist. We are obviously talking now in a Christian concept with this use of the English word God, though the other monotheistic religions may sometimes use it, Judaism and Islam, though they have their specific terms, Yahweh, for example, or an Allah. So God is specifically associated with Christianity. For now, capital G-O-D, God, became the one male supreme being noun, creator noun. Now, is this a fact, fiction, relative perception, or a delusion? To date, no one has ever proved that there is a one male creator being noun, or a one female goddess creator being noun. The very implementation of a capital G-O-D, God, was the Christian way of reinforcing their belief in the one true male creator being, as opposed to lesser small G-O-D gods or spirit beings. The English language uses capitals, of course, to begin sentences, but also to denote something very specific and very important. Interestingly, the word capital refers to a central city, often with governmental ties, and capital is also about wealth. Very interesting. Capital G-O-D in connection with government and wealth. Obviously, with the use of God, whether capital G or small g, we're not dealing with fact here. We are dealing, as the question states, concepts. What is your concept, idea, notion, speculation, theory of God? Now, since there is no provable one male creator being, there really is no answer to that question. It's a moot point. However, when it comes to small g God, referring to spirit being or beings, then this becomes an area for open dialogue, discussion. Now again, we're using an English word here, spirit, which by definition refers to that which is incorporeal or not the body. So much for the cliche, one is spiritual, but not religious. And now this being, again, an English word used in a Christian context, this is up to Christians to debate. What is this spirit? What is it that is beyond the body, mind, and emotion? That's for them to figure out. As a Hindu, in this area, we would use the word deva or devas, spirit beings. Deva means being of light. And in the Hindu yoga dharma, Hinduism, the Hindu religion, we deeply explore this inner essence, which we call the Atmana, soul, if you will, or spirit, if you will. And it literally means not mind. So it has a very similar connotation. Spirit is not body. Atmana is not mind, which also implies not the body or the emotions. And it is in the Hindu yoga dharma that we explore the reality of this Atmana, this inner essence within all. It's an experience of pure energy, provable, of pure light, a feeling of lightness, provable, and inner light, which is also provable. If it were not for the inner light, we would not have dreams, inner visions. There are those that can close their eyes and see light, and it's also done as an optical illusion, in a sense, pressing on the optic nerve, or when we look directly at the sun for a few seconds and then close our eyes. The inner light, a reality. And there is a very real but very difficult to bring out in a concrete form, except by our actions, this inner sense of love. So this is how, as Hindus, we would define this inner essence we call the Atmana, if you want to use English, spirit or soul. It's an essence of pure energy, pure light, and love. This is a deva. And we refer to human beings as first world devas, meaning Atmanas living in this material world with a body, mind, and emotions. And obviously, at physical death, there is no more body, mind, or emotions. And it is the Atmana that continues on. We call it, in a sense, a second world spirit being or deva. All of this is very different than the Christian use of capital G-O-D, God. Actually, in Sanskrit, there are no capitals. One should clearly see there is an inherent problem in capital G-O-D, God, in and of itself, since there is no provable one male creator being. However, the issue becomes very muddy when non-Christians, Hindus for example, also use this word, capital G-O-D, God. And for the most part, hopefully, they're not referring to the Abrahamic God. They're simply misusing this Christian term to denote their notion of a one male creator being, be it Brahma or Vishnu or Shiva or Rama or Krishna. And obviously, quote unquote, this can be extremely confusing. In other words, will the real one God please stand up? What becomes even more confusing, which we clearly saw in the cultic Hare Krishna movement from the 60s, they were quite comfortable in using the Christian term God, capital G-O-D, and to them that was not the Abrahamic God, of course, but Krishna himself. And they use small G-O-D to refer to the quote-unquote lesser spirit beings, which they often termed demigods, which to them included, ironically, Shiva, Vishnu. In other words, anyone who wasn't the real capital G-O-D God, Krishna. It's amazing how we humans can sometimes take something that is supposed to be very profound on the one hand, on the other hand, make it superficial, or, on the other hand, turn it into a totalitarian concept. When many simply say, God bless you, or God bless America, or God is watching over us, or we are all children of God, which God? Krishna? Shiva? Allah? Yahweh? When push comes to shove, the vast majority will say, no, the one true God, the Abrahamic God, the Christian God, who, in a bizarre way, is also Jesus to the Christians, which becomes a very perplexing scenario. When Jesus becomes equated with God himself. And remember, it's always a he. And for those that say it's not gender-based, well, then they would have no problem saying, Goddess bless America. Our mother, who art in heaven, thy queendom come. No, it's meant to be a one male creator being, and from the Christian viewpoint, the one true God, as opposed to the small g other gods at best. In the bizarre case where Jesus actually becomes God himself, then we have God giving birth to himself through his mother, who was actually married to another man. That's about as bizarre a scenario as one can imagine. So those that use the word God, well, that's up to them to figure out if what they're saying is a fact or a fiction, their simple relative perception, or an outright delusion. And this is not to say that all of us as individuals cannot have a rich and rewarding and meaningful inner life. And if we can share that with others, fine. But when we try to make this inner experience the concrete reality, if you will, for all, that's where we enter into problems. This is religious fanaticism, fundamentalism, at its worst, which has caused innumerable serious conflicts throughout history. So for Hindus who use the term God, they really need to seriously reconsider this delusion. Unfortunately, many Hindus have actually been led away from the Hindu Yoga Dharma by the continual use of the Christian terms God and Lord, and they have been easy prey for Christian missionaries. A Christian once said that we know that when Hindus say God, they don't mean the real, true God, but at least we have them using our term. Why should Christians have the high road, if you will? Why should they be so entitled to a universal word, God? Especially since it's a relatively recent term in history. As Hindus, we have innumerable Sanskrit, Tamil, Hindu terms for what we could say is divine. The inner spirit of love, light, and energy. Brahman, for example, which is a neuter term. It's not a gender. It's a greater source of love and light and energy. And this love, light, and energy expands forth into innumerable facets of love, light, and energy, devas. In fact, the very meaning of Brahman comes from Bri, to expand, the expansion of the universe, the Big Bang, if you will. The pure energy, the sound energy, the light energy, the heat energy that is creation itself in its purest form, which then coalesces through evolution into very specific names and forms, Nam and Rup, to be respected for their specifics. This is why Hindus name various spirit beings like Brahma and Vishnu and Shiva and Ganesha and Muruga and Hanuman and Ram and Krishna, for this also dwells within the human form. Hence, Hindus say Tattvam Asi, that thou art. We are the Atmana of love and light and energy that in this incarnation has taken on a specific body, mind, and emotions. This is what we know, as opposed to a concept, an abstraction, an idea, a theory that we attempt to make into a fact, bringing about further misunderstandings and delusions. We need to be careful with the words that we use, as the Saiva Hindu Guru Patanjali said, Sabdayananupati vastu sunyo vikalpaha. Delusion, vikalpa, arises, anupati, when we take word knowledge, sabdayana, devoid, sunyo, of facts, vastu. So Hindus, next time you're tempted to say, God bless you, why not just say bless you? Love bless you. If, as Christians often say, God is love, well, then just say love. Wow. That's a tangible human experience, a reality. And Hindus within your specific groups, you could say, oh, Govinda bless you, or Ganapati bless you. And if someone says, God bless you to you, you may want to have a little fun with them, but often be careful. Return with Ganapati bless you, Shiva bless you, to see if they really mean God bless you from their point of view, or they're just using it as a superficial statement. So let's take our life seriously, but not too seriously. We're all in this together. as we travel on this magical eternal journey together, trying to better understand who we are and learn to get along with our fellow human beings. And as Hindus, we always try to end our discussions with seeking peace, peace, peace. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.